that divine and celestial matters are fittingly revealed, even through unlike symbols. I consider, then, that in the first place we must explain our conception of the purpose of each hierarchy and the good conferred by each upon its followers. Secondly, we must celebrate the celestial hierarchies as they are revealed in the Scriptures. And finally, we must say under what holy figures and descriptions in the sacred writings portray these celestial orders, and to what kind of purity we ought to be guided through those forms, lest we, like the many, should impiously suppose that those celestial and divine intelligences are many-footed, or many-faced beings, or formed with the brutishness of oxen, or the savageness of lions, or the curved beaks of eagles, or the feathers of birds, or should imagine that they are some kind of fiery wheels above the heavens, or material thrones upon which the supreme deity may recline, or many-colored horses, or commanders of armies, or whatever else of symbolic description has been given to us in the various sacred images of the Scriptures. Theology, in its sacred utterances concerning the formless intelligences, does indeed use poetic symbolism, having regard to our intelligence, as has been said, and providing a means of assent fitting and natural to it by framing the sacred Scriptures in a manner designed for our upliftment. But someone may prefer to regard the divine orders as pure and ineffable in their own natures, and beyond our power of vision, and may consider that the imagery of the celestial intelligences in the Scriptures does not really represent them, and is like a crude dramatization of the celestial names. And we may say that the theologians, in depicting holy incorporeal natures under bodily forms, should, as far as possible, make use of fitting and related images, and represent them by the most exalted, incorporeal, and spiritual substances among ourselves, and should not endue the celestial and godlike principles with a multitude of low and earthly forms. For the one would contribute in a higher degree to our assent by dissociating incongruous images from the descriptions of mundane natures, while the other impiously outrages the divine powers and leads our minds into error when we dwell upon such unholy compositions. For we might even think that the supercelestial regions are filled with herds of lions and horses, and re-echo with roaring songs of praise, and contain flocks of birds and other creatures, and the lower forms of nature and whatever other absurd, spurious, passion-arousing, and unlike forms the Scriptures use in describing their resemblances. Nevertheless, I think that the investigation of the truth shows the most holy wisdom of the Scriptures in the representations of the celestial intelligence, which makes the most perfect provision in each case, so that neither is dishonor done to the divine powers, as they may be called, nor are we bound more passionately to earth by the meanness and baseness of the images. For it might be said that the reason for attributing shapes to that which is above shape, and forms to that which is beyond form, is not only the feebleness of our intellectual power, which is unable to rise at once to spiritual contemplation, and which needs to be encouraged by the natural and suitable support and upliftment which offers us forms perceptible to us of formless and supernatural contemplations, but it is also because it is most fitting that the secret doctrines, through ineffable and holy enigmas, should veil and render difficult of access for the multitude the sublime and profound truth of the supernatural intelligences. For as the Scriptures declare, not everyone is holy, nor have all men knowledge. Again, if anyone condemns these representations as incongruous, suggesting that it is disgraceful to fashion such base images of the divine and most holy orders, it is sufficient to answer that the most holy mysteries are set forth in two modes. One, by means of similar and sacred representations akin to their nature, and the other through unlike forms designed with every possible discordance and difference. For example, the mystical traditions of the enlightening Word sometimes celebrate the sublime blessedness of the superessential One as Word and wisdom and essence, proclaiming the intellect and wisdom of God both essential as the source of being and also as the true cause of existence, and they make it equivalent to light and call it life. Now, although such sacred forms are more venerable and seem in one sense to surpass the material presentation, even so, they fail to express truly the divine likeness which verily transcends all essence and life, and which no light can fully represent, for an other word and wisdom is incomparably below it. But at other times it is extolled in a supermundane manner in the same writings, where it is named invisible, infinite, and unbounded, in such terms as indicate not what it is, but what it is not. For this, in my judgment, is more in accord with its nature, since, as the mysteries and the priestly tradition suggested, we are right in saying that it is not in the likeness of any created thing, and we cannot comprehend its superessential, invisible, and ineffable infinity. If, therefore, the negations in the descriptions of the divine are true, and the affirmations are inconsistent with it, the exposition of the hidden mysteries by the use of unlike symbols accords more closely with that which is ineffable. Accordingly, this mode of description in the holy writings honors, rather than dishonors, the holy and celestial orders, by revealing them in unlike images, manifesting through these their supernal excellence, far beyond all mundane things. Nor, I suppose, will any reasonable man deny that discordant figures uplift the mind more than do the harmonious. For in dwelling upon the nobler images, it is probable that we might fall into the error of supposing that the celestial intelligences are some kind of golden beings, or shining men flashing like lightning, fair to behold, or clad in glittering apparel, raying forth harmless fire, or with such other similar forms as are assigned by theology to the celestial intelligences. But lest this thing befall those whose mind has conceived nothing higher than the wonders of visible beauty, the wisdom of the venerable theologists, which has power to lead us to the heights, reverently descends to the level of the inharmonious dissimilitudes, not allowing our irrational nature to remain attached to those unseemly images, but arousing the upward turning part of the soul and stimulating it through the ugliness of the images, since it would seem neither right nor true, even to those who cling to earthly things, that such low forms could resemble those supercelestial and divine contemplations. Moreover, it must be borne in mind that no single existing thing is entirely deprived of participation in the beautiful, for, as the true word says, all things are very beautiful. Holy contemplations can therefore be derived from all things, and the above-named incongruous similitudes can be fashioned from material things to symbolize that which is intelligible and intellectual, since the intellectual has in another manner what has been attributed differently to the perceptible. For instance, passion in irrational creatures arises from the impulse of appetency, and their passion is full of all irrationality. But it is otherwise with intellectual beings, in whom the energy of passion must be regarded as denoting their masculine reason and unwavering steadfastness, established in the changeless heavenly places. In the same manner, by desire in irrational creatures, we mean the instinctual, innate tendency toward temporal material things, or the uncontrolled inborn appetites of mutable creatures, and the dominating irrational desires of the body, which urge the whole creature towards that for which the senses crave. But when using unlike images, we speak of desire in connection with intellectual beings. We must understand by this a divine love of the immaterial, above reason and mind, and an enduring and unshakable superessential longing for pure and passionless contemplation, the true, sempiternal, intellectual participation in the most sublime and purest light, and in the eternal and most perfect beauty. The incontinence we must understand as that which is intense and unswerving and irresistible because of its pure and steadfast love of the divine beauty, and the undeviating urge toward that which most truly is to be desired. In the case of the irrational or the insensitive things, such as brutes among living creatures or inanimate objects, we rightly say that these are deprived of reason or of sense perception, but we fittingly proclaim the sovereignty, as supramundane beings, of the immaterial and intellectual natures over our discursive and corporeal reasoning and sense perceptions, which are remote from these divine intelligences. It is therefore lawful to portray celestial beings in forms drawn from even the lowest of material things, which are not discordant, since they too have originated from that which is truly beautiful, have throughout the whole of their bodily constitution some vestiges of intellectual beauty, and through these we may be led to immaterial archetypes. The similitudes being taken, as has been said, dissimilarly, and the same things being defined, not in the same way, but harmoniously and fittingly, in the case both of intellectual and sensible natures. We shall see that the theologians mystically employ symbolical explanations not only in the case of the celestial orders, but even for the presentation of the deific principles themselves. And sometimes they celebrate deity itself with lofty symbolism as the sun of justice, as the morning star rising mystically in the mind, or as light shining forth unclouded and intelligibly. And sometimes they use images of things on earth, such as fire flashing forth with harmless flame, or water affording abundance of life symbolically flowing into the belly and gushing out in perpetually overflowing rivers and streams. The lowest images are also used, such as fragrant ointment or the cornerstone, and they even give it the forms of wild animals and liken it to the lion and panther, or name it a leopard or a raging bear bereaved of its young. I will add, furthermore, that which appears most base and unseemly of all, namely that some renowned theologians have represented it as assuming the form of a worm. Thus all those who are wise in divine matters and are interpreters of the mystical relations set apart in purity the Holy of Holies from the uninitiated and unpurified, and prefer incongruous symbols for holy things, so that divine things may not be easily accessible to the unworthy, nor may those who earnestly contemplate the divine symbols dwell upon the forms themselves as the final truth. Therefore, we may celebrate the divine natures through the truest negations and also by the images of the lowest things in contrast with their own likeness. Hence, there is no absurdity in portraying the celestial natures, for the reasons mentioned, by discordant and diverse symbols. For possibly we ourselves might not have begun to search into the mysteries which lead us to the heights through the careful examination of the Holy Word, had not the ugliness of the imagery of the angels startled us, not suffering our mind to dwell upon the discordant figures, but stimulating it to leave behind all material attachments, and training it by means of that which is apparent to aspire devoutly to the supramundane ascent. Let these things suffice touching the corporeal and inharmonious forms used for the delineation of angels in the sacred scriptures, we must proceed to the definition of our conception of the hierarchy itself and of the blessings which are enjoyed by those who participate in it. But let our leader in the discourse be my Christ, if thus I dare name him, who inspires all hierarchical revelation. And do thou, my son, listen, according to the law of our hierarchical tradition, with meet reverence to that which is reverently set forth, becoming through instruction inspired by the revelations, and treasuring deep in the soul the holy mysteries, preserve them in their unity from the unpurified multitude. For, as the Scriptures declare, it is not fitting to cast before swine that pure and beautifying and clear shining glory of the intelligible pearls.